All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are tackling a fact that might just blow your mind, and it's all about a fruit you probably have in your kitchen right now. We're going to talk about how the humble tomato is, believe it or not, genetically way more complex than you or me.
So, let's just set the stage here with a really simple question. You've got a human, right? Capable of composing symphonies, building skyscrapers, the whole deal. And then you've got, well, a tomato. So, who do you think has the more complex genome? The more intricate set of genetic instructions?
Now, if you said human, don't worry, you're not alone, but you'd be wrong. Here's the kicker. The human genome has somewhere around 23,000 genes. And the tomato? It's packing a massive 35,000. Just let that sink in for a second. That is over 10,000 more genes inside that little red fruit on your counter. So what on earth is going on here? How is that even possible?
Okay, to get our heads around this, we have to completely shift our thinking. This isn't about intelligence or consciousness. It's all about survival strategy. See, that huge gap in gene count comes down to a plant's very unique playbook for how to stay alive when you literally can't move.
Yeah, it really all boils down to two totally different ways to play the game of life. Our strategy, the human strategy, is all about moving and thinking. If there's danger, we can run away. If we're hungry, we can go find food. But a plant, obviously it can't do any of that. Its entire game plan is chemistry and adaptability. It has to brew up its own defenses to fight off pests, create its own food right where it stands, and even convince insects to come pollinate it, all without taking a single step.
And you know, to run a chemical factory that sophisticated, you need a ton of blueprints. And that's really what a gene is. It's just a little piece of DNA with the instructions for building one specific thing, a protein. And those proteins, they're the tiny little machines that do pretty much all the important work inside any living thing.
So the big question is, how did the tomato get so many of these genetic blueprints in the first place? Well, the answer is this really cool process that's kind of like an evolutionary copy machine. It's a quirk of nature that's allowed plants to build up this massive genetic toolkit over millions and millions of years. It's a process called gene duplication. And you can seriously think of it like a mistake at the photocopier. It's a glitch in the system, but one of those happy accidents that turns out to have a really creative and powerful outcome. Evolution is great at turning bugs into features. So here's how it works. It's pretty simple, really. Step 1, you've got a single gene, and it's got one really important job to do. Then, by accident, a copy of that gene is made. Now here's the magic part. The original gene just keeps on doing its essential job, so the plant is totally fine. But the new copy? It's basically a spare part. It's free to change and mutate over time, eventually evolving to do something completely new, all without messing up the original's critical function.
And you can imagine how this just snowballs over evolutionary time. For the tomato, this wasn't just one or two genes getting copied. Oh no. Its ancestors went through at least 2 massive whole genome duplication events. That's when the entire genetic playbook gets copied at once. This basically handed the tomato's ancestors a huge sandbox of spare genes to play with, to experiment, which is how we end up with the 35,000 genes it has today.
Okay, so let's circle back. Does having more genes make the tomato more complex than a human? Well, not exactly. What this discovery really does is it forces us to rethink what complexity even means in biology. It's definitely not just a numbers game. There's a great way to put this. Complexity is multifaceted. It's not some straight ladder where we humans are sitting proudly at the top. It's much more like a massive branching tree, where every branch represents a different, unique, and incredibly sophisticated way of being complex.
So, at the end of the day, we're just talking about different flavors of complexity. Our brand of complexity is all neural and social. You know, our big brains, our ability to communicate, our complex societies. Tomatoes, their complexity is all about biochemical and genetic fireworks. They're just these incredibly sophisticated chemical factories, perfectly designed to survive without ever moving. So what are all those extra genes actually for? Well, a huge chunk of them are basically dedicated to chemical warfare, making compounds to fight off pests and fungi. A whole bunch of others are the little artists responsible for the hundreds of chemicals that give a tomato its specific taste and smell. And then, of course, you've got tons of genes just for fine-tuning photosynthesis and battling diseases. Every single one is like a specialized tool in this massive survival kit. And look, this isn't just a cool fact to share at a party. Understanding the tomato's giant genetic toolkit has some seriously practical uses. It's a direct line from this deep, fascinating science to the actual food that ends up on our plates. Because we've decoded its genome,
Scientists can now go in and find the exact genes that control the stuff we care about. This means breeders can create new tomato varieties that are way better at fighting off diseases or that last longer on the shelf before going bad, or even ones that are packed with more nutrients. It's all about making our food supply better and more resilient.
And it doesn't even stop there. This research is also lighting a fire under a lot of cutting-edge biotech. Once you understand the plant's genetic machinery so well, you can get inspired to produce all sorts of things, from new medicines to sustainable biofuels. It's like the tomato's genetic playbook is teaching us a whole new set of tricks.
So the next time you're in the kitchen, maybe slicing up a tomato for a sandwich or making some pasta sauce,
Just take a second and remember that inside that little fruit is a genome that's actually bigger than yours. It's an amazing testament to the wild, surprising ingenuity of nature. And it's the perfect reminder that complexity comes in all shapes and sizes, and that sometimes the most incredible stories in biology are hiding in the most ordinary places.